this is my review of Mob Psycho 100. Okay, so Ritsu kind of goes mad with power in this episode. So immediately after meeting Dimple, he initially, as Mob did, tries to beat him up and exercise him. But after realizing that Dimple could help him bring out his psychic powers, evident by the fact that he can now see Dimple, which no non-Esper would be able to, decides to trust Dimple and give it a shot. And while he initially starts by trying to bend a single spoon and fails, Dimple then points out that he actually bent every spoon that Dimple brought him except for the one he was trying to bend. So it becomes evident that Ritsu has become a very powerful Esper in his own right, but can't really control his powers much at this point. And it is pointed out that with Dimple's help, he might be able to bring out his true full potential and finally surpass his brother. Something that Ritsu has been desiring since the very beginning of the series, because he wants to surpass Mob as a powerful Esper. That's what his main goal has been for the entire series up to this point. And points out, and true to form, Dimple does help out Ritsu by trying to possess him. But it doesn't work because Dimple had reformed previously and now again has reformed twice. He doesn't have the power to fully possess Ritsu and instead can only really bring out his psychic powers, which Ritsu is fully able to now fully control with Dimple's help. And when asked where his psychic powers came from, Dimple actually points out that it may be because of the change in his emotional state. Which is definitely what happens, because we've established in the last episode that Ritsu has been helping out the President Camaro with his purging of all misdemeanors in the school, and has indeed been dealing with thugs, and has been using Onigawara as a scapegoat to make everything Onigawara's fault. So yeah, he's definitely been experiencing a bit of a mood shift. And while Camaro has been getting off on the idea of actually making all of the filth in the school suffer, Ritsu has been dealing emotionally in the opposite direction. He's been struggling to deal with the emotional problems that he's been having up to this point. But as time goes on, he slowly begins to become less and less morally upstanding as he once was, and he starts to become a bit more ruthless and starts to just become all around a very shitty person. But he's eventually confronted by Teru, who points out that he shouldn't rely so much on his psychic powers and instead should just focus on being the best him. And then drives the point home by giving Ritsu a taste of his own psychic powers and pointing out that he shouldn't use his psychic powers because there's some people he just can't beat. In fact, that says Ritsu reeling. And also, Teru has a giant wig on top of his head that's like several times larger than his normal hairstyle back when he first debuted. It's because I think he's overcompensating for the fact that he's now bald. And meanwhile, the rumors of white tea poison have kind of spread like wildfire throughout everywhere, and people have begun to call Mob again white tea poison. Even though they don't know who he is, they've just been calling him the shadow leader of Salt Middle School, and it eventually took a life of its own, and people started calling him white tea poison, even though nobody really knows who white tea poison actually is or what he looks like. At which point this does come into play a little bit as a few days later, Ritsu confronts Camaro about his methods, and at the same time deals with one of the thugs that came looking for white tea poison that arrived at their gate. Also, we find out that throughout this that Onigawara has been hiding in the body improvement club room so that he doesn't have to deal with his peers, because as is pointed out by Onigawara, he has no place to go. He can't stay home because because his parents will ask him where he is, and he can't go to class because everybody hates him now, thanks to Camaro. So he's kind of just been milling about in the club room with the president of the Body Improvement Club, trying to actually give him moral support so that he can try and get him off his feet, and it's not working. So, but when Camaro and Ritsu go to find him and find out where he's been milling about, and try to actually not only break off the telepathy club, which is now defunct as a club, but also trying to get rid of Onigawara off the premises entirely, they find out that one of the gang leaders has indeed showed up at their doorstep, and Ritsu deals with him, thereby making Camaro a target, so that way he's forced to finally take action for what he's done, and now the school is finally free of his entire influence, and now he's no longer on the high and mighty pedestal that he once was. So also throughout all of this, there is a scene in the episode that is kind of just there, but it isn't entirely important, but it is just a really funny scene, so I thought I would include it now. So it's a point. So halfway through the episode, Mob is brought in by a shady person who is trying to get him to buy a vase, and then tricks him into breaking it by pushing him until he accidentally cracks it. At which point, Mob calls up Reagan, who immediately beats the hustlers at their own game. He basically just keeps fining them for $1 million every time they do something, until eventually they're even. And when the hustlers try to confront Reagan about it, Reagan tells them a bit of a ghost story about how he was dealing with a client up until he showed up, and said that she was possessed by an evil spirit and that it can apparently possess other people, which it does, kind of, sort of. Although Reagan initially mistakes it for Mob using his psychic powers, but the evil spirit, or at least it's implied to be an evil spirit, actually starts making everything shake and causing all the paintings and the vase to break, and everything just falls off the walls. And they realize that they probably shouldn't mess with Reagan. So at which point Reagan points out that it might have been an evil spirit, but it might not have been, because Mob doesn't see anything, and Reagan obviously doesn't see anything, and the two sort of come to the conclusion that it might not have been an evil spirit, and I think it might have been Ritsu, because he has been trying to help his brother out and something along those lines. So it makes complete sense that maybe Ritsu is looking out for his brother, because remember why he started all of this. He wanted to make the world a better place for his brother. So it would make sense that he would help his brother out. But as it stands, we really don't know what happened. So while this scene is really a little funny little aside of Reagan hustling the hustlers, it is a really funny scene. It's really not explained what happened here. But meanwhile, Ritsu, having finally cleared out all the gunk from Salt Middle School, and having successfully cleared out all the bad people from Salt Middle School, he is confronted by the gang leaders in an alley as he's walking home, and takes the moniker White Tea Poison for himself. Something that Teru overhears and immediately gets Mob over. He immediately leaves to go find Mob, unaware that Mob is on his way over already. And Ritsu effortlessly beats all the thugs, pointing out that the reason they were on their path is because they really don't have a sense of goals, and they're really just pursuing violence for the sake of being violent. And then points out that unlike them, Ritsu has actually obtained loss and has lost his ideals, I guess. So it's clear that yes, Ritsu has indeed become a completely different person, and at the end of the episode, Mob confronts him about it. But yeah, this episode was basically just Ritsu going on a power trip as he slowly becomes a more powerful Esper, and his daily life as a member of the student council slowly causes him to have a mood shift, eventually turning him into a completely different person who is completely power hungry and is now completely amoral and no longer cares. So yeah, that's mainly a problem, but there is a little bit of a tie-in here. So what the Esper from earlier, from a couple episodes ago, it has indeed been looking for more powerful Espers, and even calls his superior about it, and points out that he has been keeping an eye on Ritsu for a while and is waiting to see what he does. So, yeah. Ritsu is probably in trouble now because he's now exposed himself as a powerful Esper. So, and he is indeed in trouble because that comes into play for the next couple of episodes. But this episode as a whole was just showing Ritsu's slow descent into a power-hungry, I guess, supervillain, because now he's just got psychic powers and he doesn't care anymore. He literally thinks that he's on top of everybody and doesn't really care about who he hurts along the way, because at the end of the day, he just wants to clean up. He just wants to clean the streets of anybody who might in fact be a bad person. So he's just kind of cleaning up all the thugs and all that. But it's a very interesting set of the episode, because despite Teru's warnings, he still pursues the path of using his psychic powers for everything, and it eventually turns him into an emotionless, power-hungry person. So basically it's gotten to the point where psychic powers have completely consumed him, and now he's basically become how Teru was when we first saw him. So yeah, Ritsu has completely had a complete personality shift, and he does eventually snap out of it and go back to being the way he was. But that doesn't happen for like a couple of episodes now. So he's going to continue to be this power hungry person for the next 2 to 3 episodes, and that is not a safe place for him to be in an emotional state, because Ritsu was up to this point a good person. So the fact that he is now completely changed in his personality and ideals is a complete shift in his character that he does need to work through. Because let's be honest, it's mostly because Dimple has just been letting him run rampant with his psychic powers and letting them use them whenever he wants. But it's clear that because of that, his emotional state, having done some pretty deplorable things as a member of the student council, has started to cause him to have a personality shift, and has started to cause him to shift to become a much worse person than he initially was. But that's mainly my 2 cents on that. So Ritsu has become pretty much a terrible person, and now needs to deal with the mess he's made. But yeah, this episode of Mob Psycho 100 was basically showcased that, with a little side arc where Mob is tricked into being forced to buy a vase, and Reagan is able to get him out of it. But yeah, this episode was mostly about Ritsu going power hungry, and it is definitely one of the more interesting episodes in the series up to this point. And I've been told season 2 is better, as a bit more powerful episodes, which it does. I've seen a couple of them. I haven't finished season 2, but I probably will at some point. But yeah, this episode was one of the more dark episodes of season 1, and I definitely see them doing more of it in the future. But anyway, if you guys have seen this episode of Mob Psycho 100, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also check out my Patreon in the description below as well if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate it if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!